The purpose of this video is to demonstrate how to find and how to use the tax research tools that are available to students at San Diego State. We're going to start by using the CCH Answer Connect system, which is probably the primary tax research system that you'll use. We're going to start by going into the SDSU homepage, and you can use whatever browser you like. My understanding is they all work. And we're going to have to go find the academics section. And we're going to the SDSU libraries online site. The next step is to find the databases. So we're looking for CCH Answer Connect, which is going to be under databases, starting with the letter C. Scroll down, and there's Answer Connect. Now, you could find at times that it's going to ask you to re-log in. So I'm going to log out just to show you what that screen looks like. And these logouts are anonymous. You may end up with a screen that looks like that. All you do is log in again. And it's not going to ask for credentials or a password or anything. I'm currently off campus, and the off-campus access is as available as on-campus access. If you haven't set up your library user ID, you may want to do that. Again, it's single sign-on, and so everything you use to access the other systems at San Diego State should work for the library as well. Okay, so we're at the main page for CCH Answer Connect. And Answer Connect is built with a fairly smart search engine. And so there's a number of things that you can find really easily. So let's say, for example, I'm looking for code section 61. You can just type 61, and the search engine is smart enough to know that you're probably looking for code section 61, and it's the first result. And you can see that it ranks the orders by relevant. You can also sort them by most recent if you want to. So just a quick browse through the way CCH Answer Connect is structured is what you're going to find is that there's one system that's built totally around code sections. That's called an annotated system. And so each code section will have at the top all the different tabs that are associated with it. And you can break down the section into its different parts as well. And so the regulations are going to be the regulations that are related to code section 61. The explanations are naturally going to be the explanations that are associated with, guess what, code section 61. Cases and administrative guidance picks up court cases and administrative rulings that discuss that particular code section. Annotations are typically a series of court cases sorted by topic within code section 61, as opposed to sorted by case or by court jurisdiction. And then the others are pretty self-explanatory: IRS, pubs, forms, instructions, more. Often there's a handful of other things that are related. So you can see that there's some journal articles associated with code section 61 as well. Okay, so that's kind of the annotated way of getting through. The other one is topical. And let me show you really quickly how to access the topical system. Naturally, it's under federal tax topics. And in this case, what's going to pop open is all the different topics that have been cultivated by CCH that they figure are the ones that most users are going to want to use. So let's give that a second to pop. And you can see that there's a wide variety of topics that are available. You can scroll down the page. You can also Control F and search, or you can search for a topic here as well. So let's say I was interested in depreciation. You can see that there are a number of different depreciation topics that are available to examine. This is probably one of the high-level topics. But we can also go back to the topic page at any time, open back up federal, and here's the list in its entirety. And you can see the list is fairly long. Okay, so that's the two basic research functions. There's a bit more to CCH than that. There's just a couple other things I want to point out before we're done. So the other is the U.S. Master Tax Guide. This is if you're looking for something really simple and sweet, so you don't need an in-depth explanation. The Master Tax Guide is fairly good at providing quick answers. The Master Depreciation Guide is set up the same. The other thing I wanted to point out is the treatises. So there are some graduate courses that use treatises actually as their textbook. So of course you want to be able to find these if they are the textbook that you're using. And you can see here they are. There's a number of different treatises that we subscribe to. Those are in blue. The ones that are grayed out are the ones that we do not subscribe to here at San Diego State. They might be available at your work or whatever might be the case later on. Okay, one last quick blurb I want to show you. And that is that, of course, there are other areas within CCH Answer Connect. There's a state tax area. So state tax really is kind of two ways. All states is going to help you dig in. That's like going by code section, if you will. It's going to ask you to identify a state and the type of tax you're interested in. So let's say we're interested in, for example, California. And it's going to say, hey, what kind of tax are you interested in? Oh, I'm interested in corporate tax. And then it's going to bring up a topical list. Now, rather than sort by statutory code section, the state actually really is sorted by explanation. So it's sorted by topic. That's not to say you can't find statutes, but notice explanations is the first tab. You can certainly go in and find explanations that are associated with in regulations, et cetera, with each of these areas. But because each state has a completely different codification, it would be bizarre to organize it by code. So instead, it's done by explanation. Okay, so the other big area, in state, let me go all the way back. To the state tab. State tax topics, and this is probably no surprise. It's just a series of topics that you then can go in and select the state that you're interested in. And you can see again, the list is fairly extensive of different topics at the state level that you can concern yourself with. All right. I haven't been using the back button on my browser, but you can see it works just as well. There's frankly not a ton in the international tax section in our subscription. Largely, it is limited to treaties. Again, I know that the multi-jurisdictional class uses the treatise that I pointed out earlier. Now, there's lots of different ways to search and use CCH, but you'll figure that out as you go. Okay. So that's pretty much for CCH. Why don't I stop the video here for a second, and if that's all you want to watch, then you can be done. Okay, the next tax research software I want to demonstrate is actually one that's available for free, and it's called Tax Notes. So you can just Google Tax Notes and go to the Tax Notes website. And this is free for anyone. I don't believe you need to sign in. You'll see I'm not signed in currently. And there's a number of free resources. You can get to it this way, or you can click the Tax Notes Research. So under Tax Notes Research, you will find just about every primary source that's available. And I'm not going to demonstrate how to use these. That's better spent elsewhere, but you can see the code, the regs, private letter rulings. There's quite a bit under IRS documents, court documents, treasury decisions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is all available for free to anyone on the internet. There's not a ton under tax research for states, but that's not to say there's nothing. But what you'll find is there's not a ton of free resources available to you under the state tab. So I typically only really do federal research in tax notes, but it's all here if you want to use it. Okay, let's go on to our next software. Okay, we're back at the library's website. And this time I want to go down to N. We're going to find a product called Nexus Uni. And Nexus Uni is actually a university subscription to LexisNexis. And it's not really easy to use. It possesses all the same primary sources that we've seen. So you can find every court case, you can find every code section, you can find every revenue ruling. But what you'll find is that often the search engine isn't nearly as powerful as the one in Answer Connect. So for example, if I look up 61, it's going to return all sorts of garbage because it has no idea that I'm looking for Internal Revenue Code section 61. And you can see even if I go into statutes and legislation and only pick the United States, there's still more than 10,000 hits. So there's a few ways to try to find a code section. Sometimes if you put in IRC 61, it'll get there. I was hoping maybe the cache would come up with something. Let's see what happens if we put in IRC 61. Looks like the library is a little bit slow this morning, so am I. So it looks like we've given it what it needs. I see it's bringing up Title 26, Code Section 61, which if you don't know, that is in fact the Internal Revenue Code, Section 61. So it was able to, oh, I'm so sorry. It was able to find the code section just using the IRC code. Sometimes that's true, sometimes it isn't. What I really want to do is point out the power of Nexus Uni in using the citator. So a citator is something that you use, and they'll teach you this in research, to help you identify whether that case or that ruling might be current. So what I'm going to do is go into a case. I'm hoping it will find Duberstein for me. It looks like it's going to. So typically, no document found in cases, really? It's a little bit frustrating. Like I said, you can see that sometimes the search engine isn't nearly as powerful, and you can't give up on it as easily. So let's go into this Sixth Circuit case. The answer is already given because you can see that there was another case there. So Duberstein, this is the decision that was made at the Sixth Circuit. And what you would want to do is determine whether it's still a fresh case. And first off, you can see it's not. There's a big red stop sign. But if you shepherdize is the name of the citator system that Nexus Uni has built into it. It's really, really powerful. And it's going to bring up all the cases that have cited Duberstein. And it's also going to give you the type of cases that have questioned it. So you can see immediately here that there was a Supreme Court case that came in later. There's a Supreme Court reporter, you'll learn that someday, that has a little warning, right? And so that gives you caution to maybe do a thorough read on what's the validity of that case, because you can see it's been questioned by two cases. So let's go back to the original case then again for 1 second, just so you can see. You can also click on the question by, and it will isolate just the cases that question that. Now, again, I'm not going to break down all the power that's in shepherdizing in this video. This is just to introduce you to the tool. But you can see that Nexus Uni has all of the same primary source materials, none of the explanations, none of the topical organization that you see in CCH Answer Connect, but does have all the primary source materials. And it's just the search engine isn't quite as powerful. Okay, only one more to go through and then we'll be done. I brought us back to the databases, and the last one we're going to look at is something called Westlaw. and we have Westlaw Campus Research. Now, Westlaw Campus Research is very, very similar to the Nexus Uni product, except that if you didn't notice, Nexus Uni has access to the news and journals and lots of secondary sources that have nothing to do with legal tax research. Westlaw, on the other hand, is pretty much isolated only to primary source materials that are related to the law. Now, it's not just tax law. In fact, it's all U.S. law and a lot of state law as well. And so we can go through kind of that same search function that we went through in Nexus Uni, where if we just search for 61, there's a pretty good chance Westlaw is not really going to know what we're talking about. And so it, brings up lots and lots of hits. So again, if you're looking for a particular statute, sometimes putting in IRC is the way to help you find it. And sure enough, it does. So the other thing that we can do is let's look up the Duberstein case in Westlaw. And here's the Supreme Court case. So let's say we made it to the Supreme Court decision. We weren't even interested. We can look at the exact same sort of citation. And what you're going to find is that the citator and answer connect simply isn't as powerful as either the Shepard's citation system or KeyCite, which is the Westlaw version. So again, you can look up what are the negative treatment. You can look up everything that cites that particular case. You can look up the table of authorities, which is what does it cite as part of the case. So there's a great deal of additional material that's available in the citator that you're just not going to get in CCH. So that's for pretty in-depth research. You may or may not ever use Westlaw unless you decide to become a grad student at San Diego State. Okay. So that's the four main ones. We also have access to one called the PPC tax planning tool for high income individuals. It's currently not functioning. So as soon as that gets up and operating, I'll do a short video that shows how to access that. But once it is operating, you can find it under databases, the letter P for PPC. Okay, good news. Every once in a while, something around here gets fixed, and this is one of those situations. So good lesson to learn here is if you go into any of these tax research tools, excepting tax notes, because of course that's not an SDSU subscribed system. That's just something that's available for free. If you go in and you have a problem, the College of Business librarian is a gentleman by the name of Tim Tully. And you can always contact him because he's the business librarian. So he's the expert on the business tools. Now, of course, he wasn't the person to resolve the technical issue, but he knows who the person to resolve the technical issue is. And so if this ever happens, you can, of course, inform your instructor in the class that the tool isn't working. But ultimately, they're just going to contact the library as well, just like you should. Okay, so here's PPC. It's under databases, which we found before, and of course the letter P. And this is a unique tool. It's really specifically designed only for high-income individuals. And there's the primary source materials are still there. Those are, the code and the regs. You can find those lots of places. But more importantly is the tax planning and advisory guides. And you can see that what you have is a tax planning advisory guide for a number of different areas. And because we haven't used an RIA or Thomson Reuters product, there's a couple ways to get in. You can click on it and do a search. But what I actually find with these, because these guides are fairly short, is one of the things I like to do is just go in and click on the book icon, and that basically opens it up like it's a book. And so you're opening up to the table of contents, and then you can go through the table of contents, blow out the area you really want to read, and go in and read on that particular area. So again, you can do a keyword search. There are things you can look for. This is a fairly limited database. It's really just for this one item. We use this in a graduate tax course called Accounting 655 that includes tax planning for high net worth individuals. Okay, and that's it. See you only an extra 2 minutes. See ya.